Many people consider that Hanukkah is the Jewish Christmas. The problem is that Christmas is really not Hanukkah, and Hanukkah is really not Christmas. What people mostly say is that Christmas is about Jesus' birth, even though there's, of course, some interesting theories as to how Christmas came about. But okay, so most people would consider that it's about Jesus' birth, while Hanukkah is about the rededication of the temple after it was taken over by the Greeks. However, I do want to show you one thing. I want to explain to you how Jesus connects to Hanukkah in a way that you have never seen before. The first reason I want to give to you why Jesus connects to Hanukkah is because Jesus actually endorses Hanukkah. In John 10, verse 22, it says, "At the time the feast of dedication took place at Jerusalem, it was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the colonnade of Solomon. So the Jews gathered around him and said to him, 'How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Christ, tell us plainly.' Jesus answered them, 'I told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name bear witness about me. But you do not believe because you are not among my sheep. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish, and no one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. I and the Father are one.' The Jews picked up stones again to stone him." Okay, so it says the Feast of Dedication was going on. So we know this is Hanukkah because Hanukkah, translated to Hebrew, means dedication. So we know that this is the event that's called Hanukkah. And what is happening? Well, Jesus is walking in the temple in Solomon's colonnade. Now, what you don't see is that the Jewish people, after the events of Hanukkah, took the stones that were defiled on the altar stones, and they kept them in Solomon's colonnade. And so their thought process was, when the Messiah comes, he's going to restore and basically cleanse these stones and be able to use these stones again for an altar. So what's actually happening is Jesus is essentially playing a political tease on the Jewish people, because he's walking around during Hanukkah in Solomon's colonnade, and he knows that these stones are here, just essentially waltzing around. He's making a case that he is the Messiah and basically teasing them that he is the son of David, able to inherit the throne. And so now it says that the Jews picked up stones to stone him. Well, hold on. The colonnade is basically a stable. It's full of animals and horses and basically any animals that would have been offered on the altar. So the only stones that these Jews could have picked up were these stones that were from the altar. So if you think about it, this is essentially the Jewish leaders doing such a demonic thing and basically rejecting Jesus as Messiah by picking up these stones used for the altar to stone Jesus. What a demonic, sad revelation that these Jewish people felt like, because of their corruption, they had to stone Jesus with the very altar stones themselves. The reason number 2 is because Jesus actually warns of a second Hanukkah. In Matthew 24:9, Jesus says, "Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved." And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So Jesus is talking about this abomination of desolation. He's basically quoting Daniel's own words. Why Jesus is doing that is because he's predicting a second Hanukkah. So the abomination of desolation is essentially when the Greeks came in and they desolated they create abominations in the temple and basically desolated the temple by defiling it. So Jesus is warning these people that there's going to be another Hanukkah and that they're going to have to flee to the mountains. In fact, the Maccabees, the Levites, they actually fled to the mountains after they killed the Greek soldier and the Levite. It says they fled to the mountains after the altar was defiled. So this is clearly Hanukkah language. Jesus is predicting that there's going to be a second Hanukkah, a second defilement of the temple. Reason number 3 is because Jesus actually calls the temple his Father's house. In Luke 2:41, it says that now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up according to custom. And when the feast was ended, as they were returning, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents did not know it, but supposing him to be in the group, they went a day's journey. But then they began to search for him among their relatives and acquaintances. And when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem searching for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who had heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. And when his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us so? Behold, your father and I have been searching for you in great distress." And he said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" So Jesus, number 1, his parents go to Jerusalem for the Passover, which means that in order to engage in the Passover, because the temple was still in place, Jesus actually had to eat a Passover lamb, which means they actually sacrificed his lamb on the altar, according to the Levitical customs. So you can already see that if the premise that a lot of people suggest that Jesus, once he comes, he now replaces the need for a lamb, well, that doesn't square up with this because it says that they did it according to the customs. So clearly Jesus celebrated the Passover according to the way it needed to be done with the sacrifice of the lamb. But not only that, Jesus is in the temple and his parents are looking for him. And when they say, where were you? He says, "Don't you know I needed to be about my Father's house?" So the temple is his Father's house, that he still endorses it. You see, if Jesus were to come and to get rid of that, why would he be endorsing it in needing to be in the temple to endorse this? It doesn't make any sense from an idea that the temple is done and that Jesus is in competition with that temple. It's just there's no way to make sense about that. So Jesus clearly, by being at the temple, led by the Spirit of God, clearly endorses the temple system. The 4th reason why Jesus connects to Hanukkah has to do with a situation where he's actually in the temple complex and overturns the money changers. In John 13, it says, "The Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to the temple. In the temple he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons, and the money changers sitting there. And making a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple. with the sheep and oxen. And he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned these tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." So Jesus is whipping these money changers for some reason. It seems kind of out of character to the Jesus that we usually know, who is about peace and love and joy and creating connection and saving the world. That is, if you don't know the context of why Jesus would actually get this whip together. So what is actually happening is that Caiaphas, who was the high priest, his father Annas was running the temple at the time, and he would whip the Levites when they were out of place with the things that he wanted to be happening there. Now, why was Annas even in charge of the temple complex? It has to do with the fallout of Hanukkah. Anas's rise to power, for lack of a better way to say that, is due to the exact fallout of the things that had happened with the Hanukkah and with the Maccabees taking over the temple complex, later on being given over to the Sadducees. So this all correlates to the fallout of Hanukkah. So Jesus, as it's almost like a strange but sort of violent, but beautiful at the same time, Remez is essentially whipping these people, not because he desires violence, as a message to Annas and to Caiaphas of his rejection of the way that they have been handling the temple complex. That is why Jesus connects in that way. All right, so there was 4 reasons I gave to you guys why Jesus connects to Hanukkah. I want to encourage you, if you've never celebrated Hanukkah before, I would love to hear your questions. Maybe you have some doubts about why you should celebrate Hanukkah. If you have those, feel free to comment below. Maybe we could talk about that, and maybe I could even give you some information as to why, as a believer in Jesus, I would encourage you to celebrate this holiday. Thank you for watching this video. If you please consider to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.